I really had a perfect lead-in with Patrick from New Balance, because what I'm going to talk about is a somewhat similar execution, but for a very different type of client. But before I go too much into what we did and why we ended up here, I really want to talk about why Twitch works and where we came from. I promise it's not a sales pitch, but it's important for you to understand the context so that what I'm going to share with you makes a little bit more sense. As advertising professionals, we know at the end of the day, we're all in a battle for consumers' attention. I'm a child of the 80s, and when I grew up, you know, life was a lot simpler, especially for advertising professionals. There were 3 major television networks. Fox wasn't even around yet. And if you had an exotic cable package, that meant 40 channels. And then your leisure time, well, you could be writing or reading or playing recreational sports. Fast forward to today, we know the world is a lot more options for us all. And for advertising people, as the first speaker said today, creates a lot more challenges because you have Netflix, you've got YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it goes on and on. But there's one thing that is really winning the battle for people's attention, and that's video games. On average, people on the planet spend over 3 billion hours a week playing them. Now, that's a shock and awe stat, and quite frankly, I don't think it's very helpful. I like to use a business example. Back in 2012, Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. You know Lucasfilm. They make Star Wars, and they have amazing characters that we all know and love. That's Yoda, that's Princess Leia, that's Darth Vader. It's pretty amazing, and it's a really special thing, Lucasfilm. If I think about last Christmas, my 98-year-old aunt was just as excited to see The Last Jedi as my 8-year-old nephew. Very few things past those cultural generations, like Disney, like Lucasfilm, so $4 billion makes a lot of sense. Fast forward 4 years later, and Activision Blizzard, the company that makes Call of Duty, bought a little video game company in rural Ireland called King. A little video game company in rural Ireland is worth 50% more than Yoda? Hard to believe. But maybe a little bit more understandable when you realize that little video game company makes a game called Candy Crush. Makes a bit more sense. The other interesting thing about Candy Crush, my 98-year-old aunt and my 8-year-old nephew both love to play the game. So that brings us to Twitch. We're the world's largest social video platform for gaming. Now, when I first heard about Twitch, I thought it was, at its most simple, kind of a weird idea. It's other people watching other people play video games. But if I thought about it a little bit more, it started to make sense. Again, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and every day after school, I went to a video game arcade called W.C. Frank's. So there about 3:15, 3:20, and like clockwork, a hush and excitement would come over the arcade because a guy walked in by the name of Kevin Peterson. Real guy, real story, Kevin is out there. And we all knew where he was going. He was going to Centipede. The things Kevin could do on Centipede were amazing. You know, those were the stand-up video game arcades, so only about 6 or 7 of us could really see what Kevin was doing, but it was something worth watching. Fast forward a few years later, and that's when the home consoles started to come aboard. That's the original Nintendo, that is the Sega Genesis, and I thought about it, and you know, I did invite friends over to watch me play Zelda, and then I would watch them play Zelda. Fast forward a little bit longer, and you've got the connected PC, where people are playing with each other in bigger groups, and then you fast forward to Twitch and our social video platform. Here is a channel page on Twitch where 95% of users spend their time. And you see here a couple of things going on. First of all, at the top, you see the broadcaster's name, Swifter, and then down below, you see him green screened on top of Call of Duty. And no, that's not my alter ego, because if it was, I actually wouldn't be here. Swifter makes about $40,000 an hour from streaming. And when I took this screen grab, his broadcast was just starting, and he has about 600 followers. As time would go on, he ultimately reached 5,000. And on the Twitch platform, that is a key part of how the ecosystem works. We've got about 140 million users worldwide, and then that translates to about 2 million broadcasters. And that's everybody from, well, any of you could start broadcasting on Twitch, all the way up to Swifter, all the way up to Ninja, who's one of our largest broadcasters, who regularly broadcasts in front of an audience every day of about 500,000 people simultaneously. Then that takes us to influencers. And these are people like Ninja or like Swifter who we work with on custom branded programs. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to take you through what brings me here today, and that's Prime Video's Grand Tour. The challenge for us that Prime Video gave to us was to build on the success of Grand Tour's inaugural season. They wanted to increase the hype of the show, especially amongst a male millennial audience. It was important for them to have that water cooler chat that is so often key to a show's success. I mean, the second presentation today really clearly outlined that with Netflix's Altered Carbon. So our solution was to Twitchify a memorable episode from season 1. And here's a little clip of that that'll help me explain what we did a little bit better.
But then the game started to turn as James had a run of 3 straight misses.
Fire!
It was a miss! Ah!
Thank you. I'm closing down my options.
Close your options.
Down further still if you were to hit rather than miss. Which was exactly what I was now doing. B3. A3, please.
Yes! You've sunk my battleship.
I am raining down destruction on
On your dwindling fleet of doomed ships, you loser. Aha!
No, I'm not losing. We're neck and neck.
Annoyingly, James was right.
So you get an idea there. They recreated that old board game Battleship, but they did it with cranes, cars, and explosions. So that's exactly what we did on the Twitch platform. We recreated it in a way so that instead of the gentleman from Grand Tour were playing, we took leading Twitch influencers from the US, UK, Germany, Mexico, and Australia, and created a similar game that they just saw in that episode. But we took it a step further so that we got the engagement of each of these broadcasters, each of these gaming influencers involved with their community. They were actually the ones playing Battleship through an interactive skin on their own channel player. So if you were watching at home, you were really controlling the fate of the game. We call these interactive skins at Twitch extensions, and they were a key part of this program and what made it so successful. And by voting on the coordinates, if you voted correctly, then your influencer essentially won. And then the influencer who's competing against had to do a punishment, which was a wheel of silly punishments that they got to cheer on against their competitor. How this all makes sense, I'll show you in a video here, because if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000,000.
Studios wanted to do something huge to promote Season 2 of their hit series, The Grand Tour. Utilizing the world's largest gaming platform, Twitch, they focused on two things: massive explosions and global interaction. The result was Battle Cards Live, 2 one-hour live streams that allowed Twitch users from all around the world to participate online in a larger-than-life version of the classic game Battleship.
This is Battle Cars, the live online game for anyone and everyone who loves cars and explosions, of course.
That's right. Their votes allowed them to blow up real cars with real explosives on location in Southern California.
What in a fire?
The project featured an all-star cast of leading Twitch broadcasters from Europe, the US, Mexico, and Australia acting as team captains.
So what are you guys are saying? B2, C1, Z10? I don't know if that's, no, okay.
We don't have that.
No.
Both streams were broadcast on Twitch's main channel, along with the personal channels of the world's biggest Twitch personalities.
We have a number of really awesome streamers out there co-streaming this.
Shout out to my boy Sacriel, he's back home representing the North.
What up, Tom?
Cross-platform promotional materials and user-generated content resulted in over 78,000 concurrent viewers and more than 3.3 million total views, the most successful brand-sponsored stream to date. Custom Twitch extensions gave users an interactive game board, allowing them to participate in real-time gaming. Team captains led their communities, resulting in a massive amount of engagement on Twitch chat.
Do your best, chat. It's a collaborative thing, and if we hit something, he has to do stuff.
It was literally on fire. We also created 4 custom Grand Tour emotes. The emotes were used over 2.5 million times the week of the event. GT Chimp was so popular, it will be considered for permanent status. This little guy could assure the Grand Tour lives on Twitch forever. Overall, the project delivered a new audience for the Grand Tour. The global strategy paid off, with viewership outside the US and UK up by over 140%.
Oh, should I just go now? We're done? We're done?
So the video summarized it quite well. This broadcast was 5 hours long. We did one for in the morning for a European audience, and then there was a 2-hour break that followed up for US and for those very early Australia watchers. And in total, we had 3 million views worldwide, 4.5 million broadcast interactions, and it was considered a massive success because we had over 142% global audience than benchmark. And that is really the story with Amazon Prime's Grand Tour on Twitch.